Hey, is this new? I don't remember seeing this on the store page. Alright, so I'm only like 9 episodes into this anime, but one of the things that struck me straight away is the consistency of its character designs. You know, normally when you're trying this kind of episodic introduction shenanigans where you bust out a character and immediately expect your audience to care about them is a bad idea. It puts you in a position where you're just randomly throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. And appropriately, when you do that with people, it creates a fucking mess. If you center your story around a couple of characters, it's a lot easier to build investment. Across 12 episodes or so, a character is generally going to do something or other that earns the respect of the audience. And then after that point, the whole story is a hell of a lot more interesting. It works a lot like friendship. Think back to any serious conversation with a friend where you're discussing personal stuff. I guarantee you, if it was a stranger, you wouldn't care in the slightest unless what they're saying is actually inherently interesting. Which is why, if no one's invested in your character yet, you shouldn't bore them with exposition. Wait, that's what I'm doing. If you focus a new character each episode, you lower the chance of building that investment. You also have a bunch of deadweight characters now floating around. Going back to the throwing shit at the wall analogy, you'll end up having to wade through a lot of corpses if you want to throw any more characters at the wall. Unless you know what you're doing. What I noticed about Assassination Classroom is that no character is haphazardly introduced. With each character, you're given a reason to care and just a little bit of depth. Each of them have some kind of insecurity. They're all emo in some way. But like good emo, like Zuko.
Why can't I do it? Instead of lightning, it keeps exploding in my face. Like everything always does.
I mean, it's either an insecurity or a strong opinion on something, and while I don't think any are particularly standout characters, probably because of the weight and distinctiveness of those opinions as well as how much it affects their actions, doing even that in the one episode they're introduced is pretty impressive. Also, if you're new to me, I theorize that character depth comes from opinions. It's strange, I know, but I like that theory. Ah, see? Opinions. Can you imagine if I started using my own character design theories to get people to like me more? That's a good idea, actually. But the other side of character design is where we run into an interesting design problem that's very aptly shown by Assassination Classroom. Redeeming features is another way of forming a good character. You can make them kind or intelligent or whatever. Koro-sensei puts this into overdrive and is easily the most likable character in the show. His never-ending smile in particular gives him this air of superficial relatability, mirroring our own desires to wear smiles on our faces no matter the situation. Truly a well-thought-out and intentional commentary on today's society. Oh my god, we don't have to animate lip flaps! He's the most likable character not just because he's super sweet and nice, but also because he's the most powerful. And I've mentioned my thoughts on this before. I think OP is a bullshit criticism for stories, and giving characters insane strength is actually a good thing. I mean, look how many people hate Sakura for just being relatively useless to other characters. Look at how many people love this one fight from Berserk and indicate this has some relevance as to why they like Guts so much. If this had been Sword Art Online, people would have crucified it. Oh hey look, a clip of Saitama completely dominating another character with barely any jokes. Saitama is OP, so you know he's gonna win. Therefore no tension. Therefore it's a shit fight. Just ask 5 million people! The double standard indicates to me that the criticism OP is just a failed attempt at justifying any given person's negative feelings for a show. I mean, does no one else find it mildly suspicious that the criticism was ripped from game design? People saw the similarities, and that was enough justification to start just assuming that was the problem, despite the fact that a show has no concept of challenge, counterplay, or user input. People will tell you it's specifically about tension, but that's not the only way you can make a fight engaging, and so few fights have true tension anyway. Game of Thrones has it because it proved to you it wasn't fucking around. But come on, did you really think Guts was going to die in the scene? The main character? In the middle of the fucking season? Were you even scared he was going to lose? Bullshit. What about tournament arcs? No, sorry, you're not allowed to like Boku no Hero Academia anymore. No one can die or really get hurt, so it's automatically a terrible fight. And any fight you can predict the outcome of is also bad. Read the manga? Sorry, you can't watch the anime anymore. It has no enjoyment factor. You know the outcome. Why don't shows just skip the entire fight and just print the outcome on the screen? That's all that matters, right? Do you see why I hate this argument? Like, I don't mind you criticizing Sword Art Online, but please, find an argument that works, because I can find the exact same problem with everything you love. You've got to be fucking kidding me. But then with that in mind, the question is why not capitalize on this and make all your characters crazy strong? Short answer is it's fucking difficult. In Assassination Classroom, you start off with the insanely powerful Koro-sensei. A lot of the time it's used for jokes, but within the plot it's undoubtedly an obstacle for the characters to overcome. At this point there isn't any problems. The characters so far are invested through other redeeming features, smart, sweet, so on and so forth. But then there's 3 episodes where Assassination Classroom tries to introduce 3 characters that are sold as, I can go toe to tentacle with Koro-sensei. The problem is that in trying to have 2 supposedly OP characters facing off against each other, a loss for either of them would result in a loss in their redeeming features. Now in Assassination Classroom this setup is used for expectation and denial jokes, and sometimes a little depth and development. But the problem still stands that I'm not that invested in what is now an effectively deadweight character, with no redeeming qualities. Whereas with Nagisa, she was... fuck. Come on, look at these hips. This character's made to trick me, I swear to God. Whereas with Nagisa, he was sold to me as intelligent and diligent. You sold this character as powerful, and then had to take it away. Granted, Nagisa's plan catches Korra off guard, and Karma also outsmarts Korra to some degree when he's introduced, so they've bolstered their characters a bit. But you know what that means, right? Now you've lowered the redeeming qualities of Korra-sensei. He's no longer perceived as such a dominating character. Power is more like a resource in storytelling rather than a character trait. You can spread it evenly across all characters to make sure that none of them feel useless, or you can overload it into one character at the expense of all others. You'd think OP characters would be a cheap technique, but it's actually incredibly tricky to pull off. You can't have a story with only one character, so you've got to work 10 times harder to make the other characters likable, because you can't fall back on just giving them power. You're also totally fucked in terms of how you run your plot now. If your OP character is a villain, any advantage your heroes gain throughout the story cannot be at the expense of that antagonist. And if your OP character is a hero, now you've got to somehow make the conflicts in your story engaging and last longer than I went to go grab milk and brought back the head of the final boss. Imagine if Frodo Baggins was OP. There'd be literally nothing physically stopping him from simply walking into Mordor and then punching Sauron in the eye.
Jeez, man, that's my glowy eye.
Now there's a couple of ways to design around this sort of thing. I think one of my favourites was Amon from The Legend of Korra, where any ground they get over him is the fault of his subordinates. The one time the heroes raid the Equalist base, Amon is suspiciously busy somewhere else. And in terms of managing the plot, if you pay attention during Fairy Tail, you'll notice Gildarts was specifically designed to always be away so he wouldn't one-shot every arc. You can also just brute force things and try to give characters standalone traits that aren't directly comparable. Going back to Assassination Classroom, there's one scene where Karma throws himself off the cliff to force Korra into saving him and leaving himself open for an attack. Unlike the other scenes, you're not given any impression that Korra has been outsmarted and caught off guard, so it doesn't lower his qualities, and the fact that Karma thought of this in the first place makes his character come off as smart, regardless of whether it worked or not, because the move was inherently intelligent and we can acknowledge that. So yeah, it's a very interesting design problem that doesn't get talked about because of this BS OP argument. Hopefully in time it'll fade. But yeah, I'm enjoying this series so far. I'll probably continue it actually. I just thought this was a good excuse to talk about this.